And welcome back to the Pineapple Couch, episode 87. We're going to be talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 2. We're going to deep dive it, break it down. So, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the first two episodes of Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney Plus, and you don't want to get it spoiled, here's your final warning because we are going to break down everything that happened in the episode and give some theories as well. And by we, I mean me and Peter Gonzalez. Peter, how are you doing?
I am doing well. I'm always excited to talk about the latest Marvel offering, so I'm excited to
Yeah,
get into this one.
here we are. We're a third of the way through Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I wanted to bring this up because we were just talking about it before we started going of how this show it's so different than WandaVision, not in a bad way, but how with WandaVision consuming it weekly, it left us with so many questions. You were mentioning how it like different points each day you'd like realize something or it'd come back to you. And Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I guess, is a little more straight up traditional MCU. What are your whole thoughts on that? Do you think that Marvel should have this balance, or they should be trying to be more like everything like WandaVision? What do you
I
think?
think I think the balance is helpful because it shows how the depth of creativity. And again, in the comics, not every single comic is exactly the same. I think this really
Hmm.
speaks to their ability, especially because going forward with the movies too. You don't want all the movies to be like Civil War. You need some Guardians of the Galaxy esque twist, which is a total break. And I like that again. We
Yeah.
started off with WandaVision, which really threw I think it threw all the audience, old and
Oh
new,
yeah.
into the world of Marvel in a different way. And now this is again showing the people that have been with Marvel since day one, the new fans that jumped on because of WandaVision, and it's still presenting like we also do this. And I'm sure with Loki, which comes next, again it'll be wildly different.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good point with Loki because I was gonna say, I guess the three like with I love Falcon Winter Soldier. Nothing. I'm not saying that it's not great. That I'm not as like theorizing as much because it's just a different type of show. But what I do see in the future of what the MCU has lined up of stuff that will be similar, at least to WandaVision, I think Loki, like you mentioned, definitely. Eternals, I think, is gonna blow some people's minds and be kind of different. Then I also do think that the She-Hulk TV show has an opportunity to maybe tap in a little bit of what WandaVision had because it's kind of like it's instead of sitcoms, it's based off like a legal show, like Law and Order, something like that. So potentially that could be cool.
I think so. I think another thing to think about where this show is similar to WandaVision is that we're getting characters that were theoretically underserved in the movies,
Oh yeah.
and we're getting these really tour de force performances from the actors in this other show. I mean, granted, I think it's hard to top what Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany did in WandaVision.
Hmm.
I think their acting was just in another league of itself. But
Yeah.
but here in this show, we are definitely having some very grounded performances that I think are breathing more because again, you have like a you have this set episode time devoted to them as opposed to here's 5 seconds in a movie, do something with it.
Yeah,
Next
exactly.
character.
Exactly. An example like the fleshing out of Bucky and Sam's relationship as if like it's a buddy cop. We have, like you mentioned, they've kind of showed us it in movies. For example, in Civil War when they kind of go against Spider-Man and Spider-Man kicks their ass. But also with these two, the buddy cop. I just think it's incredible, and it's going to continue, and it's going to get probably even more so. And that's what's just great about the MCU is they can dive into these different types of things and have actors like what Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen are doing is a completely different thing than Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan. So I just really like how it fleshes out the entire MCU, and it's just such like a rich, big world, I guess. So let's get into episode 2, titled "The Star Spangled Man." When we're going to start with John Walker in his whole old high school locker room. The cap suit is there hanging in the locker. His girlfriend or wife? Do we know if this is wife or girlfriend?
I think it's his girlfriend.
Okay. And so we are led to believe that she is his high school sweetheart because she mentions how she used to sneak in here before football games to give him like, I guess it's like, we're assuming like she would give him a kiss, good luck or something. I don't know
Yeah,
what they
something
were
along like
inferring.
that.
Yeah. And so she encourages him because she can tell that she's nervous, and John Walker feels a ton of pressure. He basically goes how all these people are counting on him to be something, and he doesn't want to fail them. And this like really humanizes John Walker for the first time. We're not getting it's like all week between episodes 1 and 2, we saw all the memes about just like funny jokes about how it's just rip off Cap, just stuff of that nature. And so this starts to humanize him. And it continues so when his buddy or fellow Army Ranger, Special Forces, Lamar Hoskins, comes in the room. We find out that they have experience together. He does tell Walker that the theatrics come with being Captain America. This is what Steve had to do back in World War II. This is a part of the job, and that he just can't punch his way out of everything. Peter, what is your whole reaction to two things? So your reaction to like the vibe you get from John Walker in the scene, and then also that question or that thing of him saying you can't just punch your way out of everything. Is that a reference to him maybe having some darker tendencies? But first, what was your um I guess what did you think about John Walker in the scene?
I think he almost feels like he's just got like an ego to him, which is just. But again, I think it's just kind of rubbing me the wrong way. Like the way he sees Cap is different than what Cap is supposed to be, in a sense. Like he doesn't have that same understanding that Sam and Bucky have of the who Cap was. I mean, in the following scene after he leaves the locker room, he's basically performing, but which is similar to First Avenger, where Steve went out and did stuff, but Steve was selling like the war bonds. He was selling this idea.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with John Walker, it feels like he's selling himself. He's trying
Yeah.
to say that, look at me, I am fully. And as the episode goes on, we do see little nods to him being like, I have 20/20 vision. I can do this. So then when we go into that line, you can't just punch your way through this. I think he does have some darkness to him that's unresolved. And I think that that's not who Captain America should be, is, or what the
Mm-hmm.
character is. So I think sure, he has some edge to him, but it's like he's not fully together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things that we'll get to later in this episode that I think do a good job of demonstrating that. And one thing I would just like to say that I find funny about all this is like, so they are all, I mean, the way the government is building up this propaganda, so to speak, of the new Captain America and how this country needs a Captain America. And the funny thing is, when you think back on Captain America, the first Avenger, Captain America really became Captain America when he basically ignored the government and did his own thing. And so all of the biggest things that Cap has done over the MCU, the Steve Rogers, Chris Evans run, a lot of you think Winter Soldier, you think Civil War, Infinity War, it's him defying the government to do what's right. Whereas John Walker kind of just seems like he is just kind of like gonna follow orders and do what he's told and lack that critical thinking that made Steve Rogers Steve Rogers.
It's
So
very good analysis. I think that's going to, I think, play out across the next 4 episodes, because it just, something about him is just, it's not the same.
it's off. There's
I
something
feel like we're
off.
going to be saying that the whole series, but things are not going in a good direction.
Yeah, and so after the locker room, we're gonna go out to the high school is hosting Good Morning America on the football field. It's a whole big event. The band is playing. There's the people that what is it called? Not the band, but the people who are like twirling the sticks on the football field.
The drum line? No,
Is
it's
that
not
drum?
drum line.
Isn't that the band? There's a name for it. You know what I'm talking about? Like at the
Yes.
football games in high school, they'd wave the sticks or that sounds like patronizing. It's not. That's just what I remember it as. So that's what's going on out there. Maybe someone will tell us what it was going on. I literally in my notes wrote down people waving sticks. But let's get to the GMA interview. Good Morning America. John Walker info we get from this interview. I gotta say, a little douchey in this interview. A little douchey. Has this weird arrogant smugness about him. Don't like it. Don't like it. He does, though, however, say that being Captain America is the greatest honor of his life. So credit to him. He appreciates the moment. And then we find out he's the first person to ever receive 3 medals of honor in the U.S. military. That the government studied his body and he tested off the charts in every subject, like you mentioned with the 20/20 vision. Just all these things. And I don't know if you noticed this. It seems like Walker kind of brushed that aside and moved on pretty quickly, don't you think?
Yeah.
Like he could potentially be hiding something. Who knows? And then the topic of Steve Rogers, Captain America, comes up, and John Walker talks with him with great admiration. But what it just is tough is the way he's talking about Steve when he didn't know Steve. And the thing that gets me is when he says basically the line, and That's some Marvel music. Let's go.
Sorry, my phone rang.
It's okay. He's basically what gets it, Peter, is when he says Steve feels like a brother, how he never knew him, but he followed him. And right as he says that, it cuts to Bucky. And it
Yes.
just tore my heart out. It tore the thing we mentioned, how different like Elizabeth Olsen's performance and like what's going on in those two shows. The way Bucky is showing grief, kind of, I guess, of the loss of Steve is somewhat, it's different, obviously, than Elizabeth Olsen and Wanda, but almost just as heartbreaking.
I think so. I think also because he had the relationship with Steve in the beginning. He lost the relationship. He got it back,
That's all he
but
had.
and then this to see this random dude being like it's like a brother, and it's just like when he has no idea that
No idea.
literally Bucky and Sam exist, who know firsthand what it's like that they were there with him until at the end of the line, like they were with him. So
On the left.
it's just
That
I
makes sense.
again, like you said, the performances they're doing are just so much depth to them.
Mm-hmm. And so now we will flash forward ahead in the show to Sam appears to he's getting Joaquin Torres, that's his name, right?
Correct.
Hell yeah. I didn't even have that down. But they meet and they're gonna go fly out to Munich, I believe. Because Red Wing tracked down some flag smasher intel to over there. And so as Sam's walking out, you see him looking at the Cap is back poster of John Walker. Clearly, like we saw at the end of episode 1, he is not like this. He is annoyed by this. And then we hear our man Bucky shows up and says, basically, you shouldn't have given up the shield, and starts really prying at Sam and saying how this was a mistake and Steve trusted you. All of this stuff. Sam's basically like, go away, Bucky. Go away. Go away. Goodbye. Nice knowing you. Whatever. You're a douche. And then basically, though, says he's going to go on a mission. And Bucky says, well, what could be more important than this? And so Sam then fills him in on the whole thing that's going on with the Flag Smashers. And so Bucky's like, fuck it. I'll come. And he's on the plane despite Sam not wanting that. But a thing we saw in the trailers that I thought was really funny, we get the aliens, androids, wizards, big three scene from the two of them. And you also get... So Bucky goes like, what do you mean, Gandalf? Like, we're going to fight Gandalf next? And Sam goes like, well, how would you know about that? You've been under ice, or you've been with Hydra or whatever. And so funny. Bucky says, I read it when it first came out in 1937, which is just incredibly funny. And then you also get the line of how a sorcerer is a wizard without a hat. What was your reaction to this first meeting in the show of Bucky and Sam?
I loved it because I feel like it picked up where the Spider-Man sequence of Civil War kind of ended. They picked it up right off the bat. I loved the back and forth. I almost feel like it's foreshadowing the androids, aliens, wizards, because I feel like going forward, that's what we're mostly going to deal with in the MCU for the most part, based on what movies are coming. So I like that they're kind of like saying, kind of offhanded, but I mean, like, that's literally what the threats that are going to be coming up. We had a Doctor Strange reference, which, I mean, all those things always have some weight behind them.
Exactly.
And I liked how they continue to show that Bucky's really old.
Yeah, he's so old, and it's like important to remember that because, I mean, later in the episode when we meet Isaiah Bradley, we'll show basically if Bucky wasn't like put under shape, how old he would actually look. But that's a little ahead of myself. So the two head to Munich, and Sam won't tell Bucky the plan, and Sam actually calls Bucky Buck, and I thought this was incredibly funny. The way deadpan Sebastian Stan just says this, how you can't call me Buck. Sam's like, what? Steve called you Buck, and Bucky says, Steve could because he knew me longer, and Steve had a plan. And I don't know why. When I was watching that at like 12:45 the first night it came out at night, I just lost it. I thought that was hilarious. Sam still won't tell Bucky the plan, jumps out of the plane. Bucky follows with no parachute, tries to land on his vibranium arm, really just eats shit. Sam taunts him because he says Red Wing got all of that on camera. And then they meet up and they go to this warehouse where they're tracking the Flag Smashers. And we see that it looks like they're smuggling maybe weapons, vaccines. We're not sure at this point yet until later in the episode. And Bucky just wants to attack. He says, I have a vibranium arm. And Sam goes, well, I can fly. That doesn't, no one gives a shit. We need to wait. We need to be cautious, which this is, I think, a cool way how it's showing how Sam is a great choice for Captain America. The dynamic between Bucky and Sam is showing that. Not, and I love Bucky just as much, but it's Sam's decision making. I think we'll see this throughout the show more and more of how he is really the heir to Steve in terms of that Captain America mindset. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I think especially with that whole foreshadowing of the Steve had a plan, and Sam is literally showing he has a plan when he gets into situations that do require a sense of strategy before just going in there, because I think again it brings that balance which we need. Mm-hmm. So that, like, I think you mentioned this in the first episode that we did about this show. They're both a different side of Steve.
Yep.
They both have more so than what's his name?
Walker.
Walker. You know, I just can't bring myself to learn his name because I'm just
I only say his last name.
But yeah, I liked their dynamic. I liked that there was purpose to Sam's decisions.
Mm-hmm. And so they think that a hostage is inside one of the trucks, and so the trucks leave, and Bucky and Sam follow. One thing I wanted to bring up, though, before we get to the battle scene here, is Sam is taunting Bucky, calling him, like after his time in Wakanda, he's like, "Oh, they call you White Panther," and Bucky goes, "It's White Wolf, actually." And Sam goes, "What?" And that is an incredible reference to White Wolf, who in the comics, is basically the White Wolf is in charge of Wakanda's like special like forces, like this elite group, and Bucky does that for a stretch in the comics. He is that character. There's also other people who take on the White Wolf, but we also saw at the end of is it at the end of Black Panther, or is it? Yeah, it's at the end of Black Panther when they see at the post-credit scene when we see Bucky and the people were calling him the White Wolf. So that's a cool comic book Easter egg. I like to see that. And then I don't know why this was so satisfying. I think it's because I miss Cap, but seeing Bucky run with super speed to catch up to those trucks was so freaking cool. Oh my God, just like those, it reminds you of Steve in First Avenger chasing down the car. Just a great callback to that. And so Bucky gets inside the trucks and he gets attacked by quote unquote who we thought was the hostage. And we soon find out that all these flag smashers are super soldiers. They destroy Red Wing, which another great line from Sebastian Stan as he's getting the crap beat out of him. He says, "I always wanted to do that." Another just great moment. And before we talk about John Walker showing up, the Flag Smashers neutralize Sam and Bucky. And so we see firsthand, Peter, how this group they're gnarly. They're gnarly, and they're going to be a serious threat. What was your take on this kind of, not reveal because we saw them, but the first action scene with them?
I liked that it had motion, that they were on top of the moving cars with everything. I liked, like we said, we had that callback to Steve running in so many great sequences throughout the MCU. I liked that, again, we're seeing that even though they are fighting together, they're still not necessarily a team yet. They're still they haven't figured that part out yet. So I think that's why they were able to, the super soldiers were able to stop them in a sense, because they're not a team yet. And I think that that's something that's going to play out through the rest of the show.
Yeah, and that's something certainly when you look at the history of the MCU, the importance of working as a team has been central to it. Like you look at the last battle versus Thanos, the way that Cap and Thor worked together, the way Iron Man and Thor worked together, and you saw how it punished them in Infinity War when they weren't together. And so I like that. Yeah, they do need to get some more experience fighting together. And so now we got our lame guy, John Walker, is going to show up with his shield, and he's with Lamar Hoskins. And so Walker, to his credit, is pretty good with the shield, slinging it around, hitting people. One point, Bucky catches it and hands it to him with not even his vibranium arm. Just looks at him. You know, Bucky doesn't like this. And basically, though, Bucky's thrown off, and Sam has to save him. Does this cool like swoop under the trucks, and they're gone. They're on the side of the road. The trucks keep going. I don't know why they didn't just follow to get back into the battle. Maybe they threw the white flag. Who knows? And then the Flag Smashers throw Lamar Hoskins off, and John Walker, with a pretty cool move, throws the shield under Hoskins so he doesn't land straight on the asphalt. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. You know when you like say a word in your head, like, no, there's no way that's what it is. That's just what happened. A couple things, though. So Walker is using a gun throughout this. I know Steve did that in the first Avenger, but something we haven't seen from modern day Captain America. But the Flag Smashers throw Walker off the moving car, and he lands on a car behind. And here's my question: this fight is going on for quite a long time. What the hell is that sedan doing? Like trailing it? Like if you're just that casual, like you really got to get somewhere. Like you give him at least like I don't know 100 yards. They're like 5 feet behind. It's like that stood out to me. But what did you think of seeing John Walker in action as Captain America? Really for the first time? No, not a Steve Captain America for the first time in the MCU. What'd you think?
It was a good fight sequence. It was good. It was kind of like when they put the subs in the last quarters of the game, just so the subs get a chance to play. That's the
I
kind of
love it.
vibe. I'm just so not on board with them, so I'm just like trying not to be a
Mm-hmm.
hater. But it's just like, and if
No,
it
be
was
a hater.
the
I'm a
shield
hater.
move was cool, I suppose. Yeah, because he did save him, but it's also like they're like the Walmart version of Steve and Sam, like the two of them.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that he feels that he's better than Sam and Bucky and just in the fight, I don't know. I'm just,
Yeah.
it was all right. It was a good fight scene.
Mm-hmm. I want to jump in with something, a little comic book stuff here. What's crazy? Well, I'm going to say 150% both of John Walker and Lamar Hoskins have taken the super soldier serum. Maybe they will end up taking more at some point, but I think at this point, I think basically with the super soldier serum, I think that these two guys have had to have taken Walker and Hoskins. Maybe they'll end up taking more that could cause them to turn bad in a way. But there's something from the comic books that is important to note is that when they try to replace Captain America and like have people test out using his shield, like I want to say hundreds of people try to do it, and most like everyone who's like a normal person's hands are breaking, and like wrists are shattering from catching that shield. Like it's that strong, it's that and it moves that fast, it's that lethal. And so seeing him fling it around like this, I'm just calling bullshit. You know, I'm
That's a
calling bullshit.
very good point because,
How
yeah,
can you do
that's a
that?
vibranium shield. Like,
Like,
yeah, like no one's done that up until this point.
yeah,
Uh,
like it's pretty crazy that like if he's just the way he's doing it, like that would break a normal person's hand.
Yeah.
It would. So we'll see how that goes. Let's go though. So Bucky and Sam are walking away. They lost the battle, so they're walking on the road, and good banter between the two of them. And then Walker and Hoskins show up and offer a ride, and it's great. Sam and Bucky just keep fucking walking. They have no interest in talking to those two losers. And then Walker is kind of trailing with them, driving slowly, and he keeps telling them how they need to work together. They want to work together. And he uses we way too much for my liking. I mean, good God, stop saying we, bro. We're not on the same team. And Bucky tells him basically like just because you have the shield doesn't make you Cap. He asks, this is huge. This is a huge moment for me. He asks if you ever jumped on a grenade. And John Walker says, yeah, 4 times. And he mentions basically kind of goes this like not indestructible helmet, but some sort of helmet he uses that can stop the grenade. That is not what the jumping on the grenade thing is about. The reason that Steve Rogers, the guy who would jump on the grenade, everyone is so he was prepared to die. He jumped on it with his body. He didn't have an indestructible helmet. It's completely John Walker being like, oh yeah, I did. I put it. No, it's about risking your life. That's what that whole grenade thing is about, don't you think?
Yeah, and it was before he'd even taken the super soldier. It was like he was like, oh, like it was just his innate goodness,
Yeah.
which I don't think John Walker has. It's just like, so it's like he can't compare the two things at all because, like you said, it's not about being able to stop the thing from going off. It's about sacrificing yourself for everyone else.
100%. And so they reluctantly end up, Sam and Bucky reluctantly end up getting in the car, and Haskins revealed that they tracked Sam with Red Wing. And Sam's like, you hacked Red Wing? And you get this smug ass response from John Walker saying, well, it's government property and we are the government, so it's not hacking, basically. And so that's a red flag. giant red flag that they're tracking Sam. I mean, I don't even need to explain it that much. That's obviously just a giant red flag that they're tracking Sam like this. And then the audacity to just come out and like say it to them like that.
Yeah.
Oh, really ballsy. And then what else happens here? We get Walker and Hoskins a bit. Haskins or Hoskins?
Hoskins.
Hoskins. See, what happens is there's a quarterback in the NFL named Dwayne Haskins, and so it's messing me up. Walker and Hoskins, they work with the GRC to keep the peace around the world as they're trying to build back the world post blip, post everyone coming back, endgame. And then they single out Lamar and are like, "What's your name?" Like, and he's like, "Oh, I'm Lamar Hoskins," and they go, "Lamar Hoskins, and you were hanging out of a helicopter with tactical gear. I'm gonna need more than that." And he goes, "They call me Battlestar," and that's enough. Sam couldn't, or not Sam. Bucky's like, "I'm done. He can't take it. This guy's calling himself freaking Battlestar. This dude's talking about we and how he's the new Captain America. I'm done with this. I'm 100-something years old, and I am too old for this bullshit. He is not gonna take it anymore." He gets out, and then Walker tries to like establish a connection with Sam now as Bucky's gone, and it starts good. He's saying like, "Oh, I just want to be the best Captain America I can be. It's going well. And then he goes, he needs Cap's wingmen by his side to do this. And the thing that is so, and Sam obviously storms off after this. Not storms off, just says F off and leaves. Cap never referred to Sam and Bucky as his wingmen. They were his partners, and that is another just prime example of the difference between Steve and John Walker, don't you think?
Yeah, it was like, how dare this guy think that he can just say and act like they're beneath him? Like, these people have more experience and more heart than he does, and it's like you came into this party and think that you're able to be the big man on campus. So it's like, no, you don't understand even the fundamentals of what the partnership was, of what it is.
It's just crazy too, the level of like smugness and arrogance. It's like these dudes just fought Thanos, bro. Like, where were you? Where were you during the Battle of Wakanda before all this stuff happened? Where were you? And like, where were you when everyone blipped back? Like, these people have been doing it and saving people forever, and this guy just thinks he can come in and just take it. It's like a level of like just righteousness or arrogance or like privilege. Fuck this guy. Fuck this guy. That's how I feel about him. Let's go on we go back to the Flag Smashers. They're staying at a citizen's house. He has beds and food for them, talking about how the people love them, and some call the leader Robin Hood. And then we do see Peter, very important. The power broker texts the leader of the Flag Smashers and says that she stole something from him and he is going to kill her. And we just saw this girl fight Falcon, Bucky, the new Captain America, and Battlestar, and not even give a damn and just kick their ass. So whatever struck fear into her, we got to assume that the power broker is a gnarly dude. Is that what you took from that?
Yeah, because like you said, like she just took on 2 former Avengers, 2 randos, and was like, no big deal. But like now this dude is like, we got to get out of here.
Yeah, and so that is, I assume, might be the big bad of this series, the power broker. Maybe Zemo's somehow involved in that. Next thing we get is the Sam and Bucky, after that fight, they realize that there's other super soldiers out there, and Bucky takes Sam to Isaiah Bradley's. He's a former super soldier. He's a former black super soldier. We found out basically the story of Isaiah Bradley is after Cap goes into the ice, they tried to do experiments to recreate Captain America with the super soldier serum, and they're testing it on young teenage black men in the, I believe, is in the like 50s, 60s, around the Korean Wars, when we're led to believe that in the MCU canon. In the comics, I think it's a little earlier, but we're led to believe this. And he's one of, I think there's hundreds and hundreds they do this on, and he is one of 3 to survive, and the other 2 die on the first or second mission they go on. So he's the only one who survives, and we find out that he fought Bucky and won, took off his vibranium arm, and then he is imprisoned for 30 years. And the reason that he is imprisoned for 30 years, they don't say this in the show, is because he got, for this battle, this final battle, he took Captain America's shield like quote unquote stole it from the government, to and was Captain America and won. And then once the government didn't have use for them, they put him in jail for 30 freaking years. And he's experimented on. They take his blood, all this sort of stuff. Not only is the U.S. government doing this, but Hydra is as well. Heartbreaking, chilling, and certainly puts a whole new perspective on the history of the super soldier serum in the MCU, and also gives some perspective maybe why Sam is reluctant to accept this shield. What did you take from this, Peter?
I think that, again, Marvel has a great way of sort of mirroring the current time, which I guess is what comics should do and do so well, is you mirror the culture and you put it through this lens of a comic book, and you are able to make it more digestible to people that are more apprehensive towards, confronting things like this. And I thought that it was a really well done scene because, like you said, it reframes the ideas of what we've had of the super soldier serum. Say that 3 times fast.
Yes.
And I think it shows more that this show is also similar to how WandaVision dealt with trauma and grief and going through those stages. Here we're again looking more culturally at what the world is, because even though it's the MCU, it's still got a lot of the foundation that our similar real life has.
Yeah, and so that problem, so Isaiah Bradley wants nothing to do with them. He shows off his super strength by throwing something into the wall. His nephew, who just something everyone should know, his nephew in the comic books is Patriot and is a part of the Young Avengers as like a young Captain America. So that's who that kid could potentially be. But we see Sam and Bucky there leave, and they start arguing. Like Sam's like, "How could you not have told me about this? Did Steve know?" And Bucky says that he didn't tell Steve. He didn't want to. He really wanted to just leave Isaiah Bradley alone. He'd been through enough. And so as they're arguing, the cops show up and they start harassing Sam until they realize he's an Avenger. And then they end up arresting Bucky because he missed his court-mandated therapy, which is a violation of his parole. We go to the the police station, the prison, wherever. And we find out that we see the therapist, and they think that she got Bucky out. We find out it was actually John Walker who got him out, and he gives some sort of smug look and smile and wave and says he wants to talk to them after. And Bucky and Sam go into a therapy session together to finalize, I guess, Bucky's therapy so he can be released. And they argue quite a bit, and there's a lot of back and forth, some funny stuff. But I think that the big thing to take away from this is Bucky tells Sam that if Cap was wrong about Sam, because if Cap was wrong to choose Sam to be Captain America because Sam refused it and now this guy has it, if Cap was wrong about that, then maybe Cap was wrong about me. Bucky says that, and that's chilling because you realize that the self-doubt that Bucky has. I mean, this dude's the Winter Soldier. He's basically the Terminator. He's a killing machine, and he still has that self-doubt. But Sam does respond with another good line. He tells Bucky, like, maybe you and Steve don't get it. You don't get what I'm going through. And I mean, obviously, with what we just saw with Isaiah Bradley, that's fresh in your mind. I thought there's good points made. It ends pretty badly. I mean, they storm off. Sam sarcastically thanks the therapist, but you see that this is really affecting Bucky. What did you take from this whole couples therapy, marriage counseling type deal?
I really liked the dynamic of it. I liked how, again, we're really creating these two characters are a team. That line broke me, though, when he was like, again, it does speak to how he's doing this because of what Steve told him. And he believed in Steve. And Steve's words had an impact on him, which is why he's able to move forward and do the therapy and try to make amends with the notebook. He's doing this because of what Steve said. So because he doesn't understand Sam's side of it, that's why he's now having doubts even further. If he's not right about you, he's not right about me. So I do think we are going to get more of Sam's side of it as it goes forward. And I like where this is going. I like that, again, it's not a straight line to get there.
Mm-hmm. And I like just the depth of it, really, because you have this buddy cop comedy between these two, but then you also within the same episode you have this real trauma that the two of these dudes are experiencing with losing their best friend, and for who Steve to both of them, Bucky a little more so than Sam, was their North Star, was their guiding. Like right now, like you mentioned, Bucky is doing this because of what Steve really made him believe in himself again, I guess is how to say it. So that was powerful. And now we're going to go Bucky and Sam. They go out and they see John Walker and Battlestar, and he's talking about how they need to work together, blah, 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 blah. And Bucky and Sam tell Walker, like, hey, we don't want to work with you. But they try to frame it as like, yeah, well, we're more flexible. We're not tied down to government restrictions. And they basically say, F off, dude, bye. And they're leaving. And we get the first sign of John Walker's true side, potentially, of him. He basically tells them, then stay the hell out of my way. And it is said very aggressively. And the thing why I think he has the super soldier serum, if he doesn't have the super soldier serum, like let's say he doesn't have it, and he says that, well, what if Bucky was just like, all right, I'm done, I'm gonna just beat the shit out of this guy? Theoretically, because Bucky could. Like, even if John Walker gets the super soldier serum, Bucky technically is still like, he's the freaking Winter Soldier. He is incredibly powerful. So the ball's on just the stupidity of John Walker.
That's a better word, the stupidity.
Yeah, it's just maybe he just doesn't know when to shut up. And because we see that time and time again with his interactions, like, what are you thinking?
And I feel like we're going to get an episode similar, or at least a segment similar to the Agatha All Along, where we're going to see how John Walker came to be, because I feel like there's too many flags going out for us not to be like, we have to have some explanation.
Yeah, don't give us a Hayward thing, Marvel, where you just don't explain anything. If John Walker is defeated by Darcy Lewis crashing into him with an ice cream truck, I will be irate. I will be irate. And there better be no Ralph Boner in this show either while we're at it. So now the couple last things to wrap up this episode. We see the Flag Smashers narrowly escape from the Power Broker. This Power Broker has a lot of people, a lot of weapons. He is gnarly, and he is definitely going to be a problem in this series. And then the big tease at the end, Peter, Bucky and Sam are talking about the super soldier serum and all this sort of stuff, and they agree they need to go to Zemo. And we get the final shot where we see Zemo in his prison cell. Obviously, really just a fan favorite villain from Captain America: Civil War. Very big in the comic books as well. So I'm excited to see him in this show. What are your thoughts on the whole reveal there at the end with Zemo? And what are you looking forward to with him?
I liked the reveal of Zemo. I mean, I felt like if you watch the trailer, you know he's coming. I feel like he's not going to be, like anything is, a straightforward villain. I think we're going to have him maybe help them a little bit, but then realize that something else best aligns with his vision.
Yep.
So I think he's going to be one of those people that we think is on our side and then turns out to be on the other side.
Do you think they're going to have to break him out of prison to work with him?
You know, that's going to be interesting, but I almost feel like I think that what we're going to see, which was mentioned at the end of the fight with the Flag Smashers prior to Isaiah, Bucky mentions, wanting to go reclaim the shield. And Sam points out the last time that happened, Sharon lost her job. So I almost feel like...
And him and Steve had to be on the run, so maybe they don't want to risk that. You're right.
Yeah, so I almost feel like maybe this is where Sharon comes in to help them see Zemo. Because that hasn't happened. That was our first mentioning of Sharon, and we know she's a part of this world. So I'm curious to see if that's what plays in next.
I would be surprised if she's not in the rest, like in the next episode. Like, I think, because I assume she's going to be in like the last 4. I think she's going to be that big of a role. I could be wrong, but I think episode 3. So like episode 3 will be officially halfway through the series. I think we're gonna, by the end of next time when we're doing this pod, I think we will have a really good idea of where this show is going and what we have left to do. Don't you think?
I think that's an optimistic statement to make based on everything that we went through in WandaVision, where we thought we knew we were going.
Well, didn't you hear that John Krasinski's going to show up?
I did. So I did hear, though, that someone is supposed to show up in episode 5. I don't know if it's 3 or 5. So it's like, I'm taking that with a grain of salt.
I can't even think about that. There's all these people too on YouTube who have these like thumbnails. It's like huge, and it's like, wait, Hugh Jackman's coming in episode 5, and it's just them not even trolling with you. They just, I don't like those people. But
It's a hard world with all those. And then like on Twitter and Reddit, you see all these like spoilers of this, and then none of it is true.
none of it is ever true. That's why, folks, you got to come to the Pineapple Couch for your MCU information with Peter and I. Peter, do you have anything else on this week's episode before we wrap up?
I think it further solidified that this show is closer to the vein of the cinematic Marvel content we've had. I like that we're getting some solid action sequences. I like that we are further developing the characters, and again, this is proving these shows work. Like this was why it was a smart route for them to go the Disney Plus route, and they're really proving it.
And yeah, just the last thing to add on to that is I think that compared to The Mandalorian and WandaVision, those seem like TV shows. Falcon Winter Soldier, it feels like it's going to be just like a 6-hour movie. It really feels that way watching it. Maybe that's because it's traditional MCU and that's where my head goes. I don't know. But I'm excited to keep breaking it down week after week with you, Peter. And I think next week, we could talk some Snyder Cut. I think we should probably get that ball rolling next week. So if you're listening, you still have time. I mean, maybe. It's pretty long. So you might as well start now after you listen to this episode. Go check out the Snyder Cut and then get ready to watch not WandaVision, excuse me, Falcon and Winter Soldier this weekend, episode 3, and be back next week to listen on the Pineapple Couch. Peter, you're the man. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure to be here.
All right. And we'll talk to you guys next time.